and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 239, and today's date is December 14th, 2013, and the title of this episode is the Current Economic Collapse News Brief for this Saturday. And what we're seeing right now in Cyprus is we're seeing that Cypriots are protesting against austerity, and again, as we know, austerity is not working. We see it in Greece, we see it in France, Spain, we see it in Cyprus, and the protesters are out there. They're carrying their banners. They read "No to austerity. We have the right to work." Unemployment is skyrocketing in Cyprus. It's increasing every single day. They are still under capital controls. It's been almost a year. They told them it was only going to be 2 weeks, and things are really getting out of hand. And you have to remember that people with small businesses and people who are employed have lost their businesses, have lost their jobs, and they're living on the street. They can't access their money, and it is a very tough way to live, and it's getting very difficult over there, and this is why they're out there saying enough is enough. And right now in Venezuela, we're seeing that S&P cut their credit rating to B-. Standard & Poor's lowers rating 1 step, citing radicalization of economic policy, and they've warned that another downgrade may follow in the future if they do not get everything under control. And we're seeing that S&P and the rating agencies are going and downgrading many of the countries. I believe they should be downgraded even further because most of the countries have a huge amount of debt, very high unemployment, and they do not have the revenue coming in to sustain the payments on the debt. So I don't understand how these rating agencies can sit there with the ratings they have with these countries. But then again, we have to remember they did say the subprime securities were AAA, and then they completely imploded on themselves, and they're all toxic now, and we see what happened back in 2008. Now, we all know that in all of these countries, unemployment is very high. We know in the United States, unemployment is very high, and a lot of these countries are manipulating some numbers. United States is really going overboard and manipulating the numbers here. They've changed calculations. They don't count the people who dropped off, and many other countries are starting to do the same type of thing. But here's some indication that unemployment is really, really bad. So out in the Mediterranean, it looks like IKEA in Spain was going to hire 400 employees, and 20,000 people applied for 400 spots. That just shows you right there, there is a huge problem. In Greece, there are 390 job vacancies. 18,000 people applied for 390 job vacancies. And we can see this happening in every single country. If there are jobs that open up, thousands upon thousands of people apply for the job. Especially here in the U.S., if you've ever been to those job fairs, you will see thousands of people applying for the one job to get that full-time, nice paying job. Otherwise, the other jobs are low-paying, part-time, and nobody can find any other work. And here in the U.S., the unemployment is really between 24 and 30%, depending on the calculation that you use. If you go by shadow stats using the calculation prior to 1994, we're looking at around 25% right here of unemployment. And I know certain people who are out there, they are in the tech field, and they have recently been laid off. Some of them were contractors, some had full-time jobs, and they've been putting resumes in like crazy, and they're not even getting a response to the resumes that they're putting in. And these are high-qualified people who've been working for these companies for quite a while, and they've been putting their resumes in, and now they're going out of state trying to find something. And a lot of the work that they're finding is like a 2-month contract deal. They put their resume in there, they apply for it. It's not for full-time, and they still do not get a response from any of these people that are saying that there's plenty of jobs out there. Now, we understand that the U.S. is never going to leave Afghanistan. They're going to stay in there because they have a huge amount of natural resources. They're strategically located between Russia and Iran and in that China, all in that area. We understand that China is already in Afghanistan helping the Afghan people mine the copper mine. It's the third largest copper deposit in the world. We understand the U.S. is growing poppies to produce opium to pay for their covert operations that are really not sanctioned by the United States, and this is how they get the funds to do it. And right now, the president, Karzai, who was put in there by the U.S., is finally saying, you know what? You need to change this agreement. You cannot do night raids. We do not want drone attacks anymore. You're killing too many civilians. You cannot go into people's homes without permission and just turn it upside down and kill whoever you want. And right now, the president says he's not going to be bullied into signing a security pact like this. It has to be rewritten and redone so it takes these drone attacks and night raids out. And right now, the Afghan president is saying that he no longer trusts the U.S. And I wouldn't be surprised if in a week or two we might even see. I know he's coming up to the end of his term, but who knows? We might even see him have an accident or something happen so they can get this agreement signed. And it's funny because the United States says they will not go past December, and now they're saying, okay, we'll give them until February, and they keep extending the date because they need to keep the 14,000 to 16,000 troops there to maintain control of this area. Now, we understand that Kim Jong-un killed his uncle. He's saying that he was a traitor and whatnot, and he had him executed. And right now, Kim Jong-un will take charge of the country's dealings with China following his uncle's execution. And right now, what's happening is that over the past 2 years, Jiang dominated North Korea's engagement with China, and Kim thought that Jiang had not done well in introducing Chinese capital into North Korea, and they are looking to expand the investment of China in North Korea right now. Just like North Korea was making a deal with Iran for Iran to supply North Korea with oil, and we see Russia coming in and they're going to build a railroad line, and they're making deals with North Korea. And Putin was in North Korea saying, listen, do not make war, make deals, and build up your economic base. And it's sorry that his uncle had to die, but it looks like he is pushing North Korea forward and making deals with China, Russia, and Iran. And I'm not saying it was the right way to go to kill your uncle, but this is what's happening at this time. And right now, of course, the United States sees this and says, ho, wait a minute. The United States has warned North Korea against any provocative acts following the execution of the uncle, and they're saying, hey, be careful what you do here. And what the U.S. is saying is it's something we're concerned about, and we would urge the North Koreans not to take any provocative acts, not to do so going forward because it's not in the interest of the regional stability. And of course, they do not want North Korea to make any deals with China. They do not want to have them make any deals with Iran or Russia. The last time they were making a deal with Iran, we saw that whole propaganda of North Korea with their ballistic missile, with their nuclear weapons, and they really pumped that up to make us believe that they're going to attack at any moment. And once the deal was done with Iran, trading their oil, bypassing the U.S. dollar, all of a sudden the threat disappeared. Now the threat is coming back that they might try something, and they better not. He's going crazy, and he's making deals with China at this time. Now, we understand in the Ukraine, the United States and other Western nations with the central banks had their fingers in stirring up the riots out there because Ukraine was going to go with Russia, and then they backed off, and there was a lot of pressure from the central bankers saying, no, you will go with us, and they decided the deal is not done yet, but they're deciding and leaning towards the EU at this time. So Senator John McCain is going to travel to Ukraine over the weekend, and He is the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit the ex-Soviet republic since protests erupted, and Senator McCain is traveling to Ukraine to meet the government officials, opposition leaders, and civil society at this critical time as Ukraine struggles for their future. And McCain, which I think this is amazing, that especially coming from the U.S. Government officials, McCain says he called Ukraine authorities' use of force against protesters appalling conduct that violates the most basic universal rights. But Occupy Wall Street, I don't know, I remember seeing police over there pulling people out of the banks, pulling people, hitting people. I even remember seeing one of our veterans out there saying, "Look what you're doing here, look what you're doing." So, and then you have to look inward at the United States of the NDAA, the Patriot Act, spying on people, and removal of our rights. And we also have to look outside the U.S., where they're bombing wedding parties in Yemen. They're going into Afghan homes without permission and doing night raids and killing people with drone attacks. So, to me, from him saying this just doesn't ring true, and it's not sincere, because he needs to take a look around at what the U.S. is doing, and he very well knows what the U.S. is doing. And Russia was out there saying Russia wants our Ukraine friends to deal with all their problems on their own, to come to a single consensus decision, and to assure that there were no attempts behalf on foreign nations to interfere and to deprive Ukraine of its sovereignty. And this is what Russia has said. Now, Russia is very concerned of the missile shield ranging from Poland all the way down to Romania, across Europe, and of course this was set up to protect the European area from Iran because of their nuclear weapons, and they could strike any second, and a lot of the missiles are pointed towards Russia and to Iran and to China. And right now, Russia is going to deploy a missile system in the Kaliningrad to neutralize the missile shield in Europe, ranging from Poland all the way down to Romania. And Russia has stationed missiles with a range of about 500 kilometers in its Kaliningrad enclave and along its border with Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And we can see what's going on here. They are preparing because, again, the U.S. was in peace talks with Iran, and they had this 6-month interim of relieving sanctions and talking to Iran, and Russia was out there. Since we're doing this peace, why do you need this missile shield anymore? You don't really need it. And Obama and his administration said, no, we are not going to dismantle it. That's staying where it is, period. That's that. And then all of a sudden we see the United States tighten the sanctions and not letting certain businesses and oil companies do business, because again, the central bankers do not have control of the central bank in Iran, and they don't want Iran selling the natural resources without using the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency at this time. So Iran backed out, and now of course the corporate media is spinning it that Iran has backed out of the nuclear deals, which is the illusion part of the entire thing, because again, Iran was testing ballistic missiles and the U.S. didn't have a problem with that, and that should have been, a huge problem if this is nuclear talks and they're very concerned about their nuclear weapons. But again, they want them to do this because eventually this whole entire deal and this peace that they're talking about is going to completely fall apart, because this is a charade, and what they want to do is they want to build this up and have some type of event occur and blame it on Iran, and this is where they are moving at this time. Now, the Department of Energy was hit with a huge cyber attack. About 104,000 worth of data, personal information, was stolen, and it was stolen during this summer, and the attackers in this case were able to use exploits commonly available on the internet to gain unfettered access to the relevant systems and infiltrate large amounts of data information that could be used to damage the financial and personal interest of many individuals in the Department of Energy. And what they're saying is that this hit was much larger than they said. They just didn't get a little bit of information. They got a lot of information. And they got their bank accounts. They got their place of birth information, education, security questions and answers, disabilities, and a lot more information. Now, the question I have, this is Department of Energy. They had an attack back in January, which they blamed on China. This one they're still investigating, and they haven't put blame on this yet. Will this be used in the cyber attack that is coming very soon to the United States? Because they need this event to take all eyes off of the collapse that is coming. And we will have to see, because now they have all the information. They have access codes to certain systems, and they don't know the full extent of the damage. They don't know if malware was placed into the system. They are still inspecting it, and they are looking into this right now. Now, we understand that Syria, that event with the chemical weapons, was, completely a complete setback for the central bankers and the U.S. government, because they really wanted to get the war started back in August. And right now, before this happened, they sent troops down to Jordan, and they sent a lot of military assets. And back then they said it was only for training. That's why they were sending it there. But we all knew that this was not for training, because we understand there's CENTCOM, which is an underground base that holds officers, and that was set up, and it is protected from missile attacks. That was going to be used for the command center while they were striking Syria. And these troops and the military assets in Jordan were going to be used for the strike into Syria. And right now the president came out and said that the American troops stationed in Jordan will remain there until the security situation in Syria improves. Now the question is, how is the security situation in Syria going to improve? Now, the only reason they're keeping them there is because they are planning something, and eventually they will be going in to remove Assad. And the way they need to get in there, and the only way they can get in there, is to do some type of an event. And we know a certain couple things that are happening right now. We understand UN is bringing up charges against Assad for war crimes. They did this with Gaddafi, and they brought the NATO forces in and removed him, and they're trying the same tactic that way. We understand that CNN has reported that Assad has a hidden cache of chemical weapons, and right now chemical weapons are aboard a ship going out to sea to dispose of them, and who knows, some of those chemical weapons could make their way back into the U.S. We also have the instance of some type of radioactive material stolen in Mexico. They found the people, but there's like 20 grams or so missing still. And in Poland, there is also missing radiation that they cannot find at this time. So they are definitely planning something at this time. Now, I believe this Kansas terrorism plot is a primer for what is coming. And this was completely FBI controlled. This was a electrical engineer that worked at the Kansas airport. He was an aviation electrician, and he converted to Islam supposedly. He's been in touch with the FBI, and what we are seeing, they're calling him the American engineer turned unlikely jihadist, and what they're saying, a everyday looking white male American can all of a sudden be radicalized into a jihadist, and it could turn into a terrorist. And this is what Dianne Feinstein, Mike Rogers was saying, that a lot of these people coming back from Syria who were Americans could be radicalized and turned into terrorists. And here they're priming the pump right now, letting us know and showing us that this is what we could see in the future, because they are pushing the false flag forward with this. And this goes on to say that Terry Lowen is the unlikely face of alleged Islamic homegrown terror after he was charged with plotting a pre-Christmas suicide bomb mission at the Kansas airport where he worked as an aviation electrician. His arrest shots show a bespectacled 58-year-old white man who looks as unassuming as relatives and friends describe him. His family knew that he had recently converted to Islam, but according to prosecutors, Mr. Lowen has been hatching a plot to use his airport access to blow up civilian planes with the help of an undercover FBI agent he met on a pro-jihad website. And a couple of reports I said ago is that the FBI was out there on the internet and they were spying on people in Warcraft and different games, setting up websites to try to stop people from joining these jihadist websites. I think it's the total opposite. I think they're out there trying to recruit people to completely create this false flag event, brainwash them, make them think they're going undercover, have them do this operation, and then stop them right at the point, right before, so they can prime the pump for the next false flag event. And we see this happening. This is totally what happened in the Boston bombing, and we can see this definitely occurring as time goes further on, because we understand that the collapse is coming and they need to cover this up. And we can see by all the information that we're receiving about the memo that I read yesterday about Iranians being sneaking into the country, about Al-Qaeda coming in from the north, who just so happen to be bomb makers, and we can see lone wolf groups running around the United States that cannot be tracked. And again, I'm not saying this is all true. I'm saying this is the propaganda they are feeding the American people to make us believe that something could happen and we are in big danger. And this is why Dianne Feinstein and Mike Rogers are out there reporting this to scare everyone. So when something happens, it's already in the minds of the people and they believe this. Just like the shooting that happened in Colorado, they're making it seem like this kid was a bully, that he didn't like the economic policies of the U.S. government, and he was a pro-gun white male, and we can see how they are pushing the agenda. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.